Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Christy with LemonadeLXP, joined by Matt Ballou, CRO of WyHy Credit Union. And we're here to talk about the human side of M&A events. So thank you, Matt, for being here today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so just to set the stage for a moment, M&As are quite common in the financial industry and can be a key part of an FI's growth strategy. Leading up to this webinar, I actually pulled a report of FIs, including banks and credit unions in North America, that have been involved in an M&A transaction in the last 18 months. And it was a whopping list of 887 FIs representing 1.1 million people affected, which is a lot. When you think about people whose banking careers span 20 plus years, it's almost inevitable that someone's going to be involved in some sort of M&A event eventually. So I think this is an important topic for most. And we all know that although M&As can be great for growth, they can be quite disruptive for those involved, including staff and members or customers. So Matt, it's great to have you with us here today to talk about how to navigate some of these challenges. Maybe you could start us off and tell us a little bit about your role as Chief Retail Officer at WyHy.
Yeah. So, Chief Retail Officer, really, retail is just everything that is member facing, right? So, if a member comes into a branch or calls into the contact center, they text us, email us, all of that is owned by retail. So, our job is to make sure that we provide the exceptional member service to every member through every channel, every time.
And Matt, you're no stranger to M&A events. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
In the past 2 years, we've merged in 3 credit unions. We've learned a lot about what to do as well as not to do, how to make these mergers successful. We really went through the school of hard knocks. So I'd love to share some insights to help others have a smoother go at this than we did.
Wow. I mean, 3 mergers in 2 years is a lot. That's quite a heavy lift. And I know the audience will be keen to learn more about your experiences there. So before we dive in, let's find out if folks in our audience have also been affected by an M&A event. If you give us a moment here, we'll just bring up a poll and we will take a look at the results. So incredibly, 80% of you have been affected by an M&A event in the past. So this is great. This is very topical for our audience today. Okay, Matt. So tell us a bit about the challenge that is presented when a merger or acquisition is announced.
Yeah, the first thing that employees are going to think is, do I still have a job? You have to assure people that the staff is safe, right? Everybody employed today is going to be employed tomorrow. Members don't typically care what name's on the front door. They just care if Susie's still going to be the one to wait on them in the lobby. Next, you have to develop a strong transition plan, meaning how are you going to transition these tenured employees to the new organization?
And what does the roadmap typically look like for one of these things?
The plan on paper is simple, right? You set a date for the data conversion, meaning this is when all the systems are going to transition from the old institution to the new institution. So the employees need to know your system by then. So for example, if you set a date, let's just say March 1st, and you have that hard date, well, then you know how many months you have to train leading up to that big data conversion. It sounds simple, but in reality, if you don't have a solid training solution or the ability to create training quickly on the fly because something's always going to come up you didn't plan for, then it can be quite the challenge. You have a full team of staff with a long tenure at another institution using different systems. It's a different organization with a different culture, and you're trying to transition them over to everything that WyHy is. How do you bring these people up to speed?
And how would you say that relates to the member experience?
Like I said earlier, in retail, we work to provide exceptional member service to every member through every channel every time, right? I don't want to talk to a member, or I don't want a member talking to employee A at one branch and employee B at another branch and getting 2 different answers or 2 different levels of service. It has to be consistent through every channel. At WyHy, we've gone to a true universal model. And that means that there's a huge amount of information that frontline staff have to know or have at their fingertips to ensure consistent member experience. It's not just opening a new account, right? Our universal employees do everything from cashing a check to completing a mortgage application.
If not handled well, would you agree that there can be a negative impact on staff and or members?
Yeah, absolutely. If staff aren't empowered with the proper tools to transition to the new organization, it can be stressful for them. It's going to impact their success, the branch culture. It's probably going to cause quite a few of them to quit, honestly. You're taking an employee who is used to being an expert and used to being able to provide that service to their members, and now they start feeling that helplessness of, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do anymore. That kind of day in and day out drag will lead to burnout and turnover, which is not ideal at any time, certainly not immediately following a merger. Meanwhile, the impact on the members is going to be just very blatant. First off, there's two things that members don't like, and that's the way things are and change. So if staff aren't set up for success, it's going to bleed over to the members who are going to say this isn't the credit union it used to be. And to be quite frank, I don't see anything about the new credit union that I like. If the staff aren't trained up on how to provide the new level of exceptional member service, then the members won't be receiving that exceptional service, and it's going to impact loyalty and member retention.
Okay, so audience poll number two. Do we think that these M&A events can be quite disruptive for staff and members? And looking at the results, it would look as though you agree 100% feel like it can be disruptive. The majority feeling that it's highly disruptive, and a few of you, 33%, saying it's somewhat disruptive. So, once again, this is a great topic to be covering, considering we want to de-risk the situation with some of these M&A events and really ensure we're focusing on that member experience. So thank you very much for participating in that poll. All right, Matt. So at what point does Lemonade enter the picture for you?
So the first merger we did was prior to the rollout of Lemonade. We didn't really have a centralized training platform. It was really just our historical training method, right? Trying to pass on legacy knowledge from one employee to the next, and it was pretty rough. You're going back through all the old emails that you sent to your team over the previous years that covered topics that were clearly important at one time because, boy, I've got to get that information to these new merged employees as well. Or we got smart one time and we started a Word document to write stuff down on. Really, we had junk tools for trying to train and transition a team.
So it sounds like you had a training problem that was exacerbated when you had a disruptive event like a merger, because you were in a position to essentially onboard all of these new folks to the WyHy organization in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, as you grow and you get bigger, you really have to evolve and scale your business alongside it. So we just started out by saying, look, we've got a bunch of procedures that are out of date. They need to be updated. We just had to ask ourselves, how are we training? How are we going to be consistent? Somebody's got to own it. The reason we started shopping around for a product like Lemonade was we identified we needed a platform or a centralized location for all of our knowledge and training to live.
So in enters Lemonade LXP to try and address some of these challenges. And for those who are unfamiliar with Lemonade LXP, it's a learning experience and digital enablement platform purpose built for financial institutions. The learning experience incorporates micro learning, game based learning, and tech training tools to get employees role ready faster. And the digital enablement platform uses technology walkthroughs to teach and support digital customers. So, Matt, what made you land on Lemonade LXP as a training solution when you were looking at different providers?
Pretty much everything you just said, right? Lemonade, it was really a solution that just addressed all of our challenges. What really made Lemonade stand out to us was that game-based learning. I mean, there's a million different training platforms out there, but it's the game-based learning that made Lemonade shine. It's the idea that employees will enjoy going through a training rather than dreading it. Let's be honest, training is not historically a fun thing for staff to do, right? It's a task. We say, hey, this month you've got to take these 6 trainings. Let me know when you're done, and we'll move on to next month. What Lemonade does through the gamification is it creates an excitement around training where people actually want to log on and do it. And more importantly, they want to repeat it. As soon as you add a game or a high score type scenario, people naturally will want to try to beat each other or beat their own high score. It causes people to repeat these trainings. And now instead of seeing the material one time, every few months or once a year, they actually learn the material through that repetition.
And tell me, how did your team find the implementation of Lemonade, content authoring, etc.?
The implementation was super simple. As for creating the content, it truly is quick and easy. We have one dedicated person creating most of the content, but we have opened it up to every department, and every department has created some of their own content as well. Another big benefit of Lemonade is what they call the content exchange. So I don't know if you can talk to that at all, Christy, but it's where we go out and we find a pre-built training, right, that fits our needs. So we don't have to build it on our own.
Yeah, so Content Exchange is a library of pre-built content right in the platform, purpose-built for FIs. Broad range of stuff in there. Some of it's regulatory, some of it's banking 101, soft skills, management skills, things of that nature. And it can be really handy for resource constrained teams to get meaningful content out to learners quickly. So it's great to hear that you're taking value from that. Tell me, Matt, tell me a little bit about the types of content that you've built into the system.
We've built a lot. We have a lot in there. A lot of what we created first was just procedures on how to work through the WyHy systems. But we've also built product guides. We've built trainings on how to speak to members about certain products. We even built some courses that were simply getting to know certain individuals from around the credit union. Just kind of a fun, get to know your coworker kind of thing. Basically, when somebody says, I don't know that, then we say, give us a few minutes and we'll build a Lemonade training for it.
With digital services expanding and being such an area of focus for most FIs, did you focus any of your training on that?
Definitely. The reality, Christy, is we're never going to have all of our employees bank with us, right? We would love it if they did, but just the reality of financial institutions, you're never going to have that. So the question becomes, if you as a frontline employee don't utilize the digital services on your own account, how are you going to speak to them? So we have to make sure we have a Lemonade training for all of our digital products and services.
When you talk about allowing staff to experience your digital services, what does that look like in Lemonade?
Some of the first trainings we built in Lemonade were the product and service guides around everything digital. The trainings we built ranged from a demo that walked staff through the system on how to service the digital channels, all the way to a conversation training where the employee has to make selections on how they respond to a member's questions, and that changes the flow of the conversation in the training. We believe the future of member service is through self-serve digital options. So we need our team to be able to educate members on how to make their lives more efficient with the digital tools.
Pivoting a little bit here, prior to Lemonade, did you have any way of validating whether or not somebody was role ready?
Yeah, prior to Lemonade, we had a version of a knowledge check, right? It was a multiple choice question test. Uh, we would ask specifics of a product, for example, mobile deposit. And the questions we would ask are things like, what's the deposit limit, or how many checks can be deposited in a day, stuff like that. The questions were focused on very specific items and wasn't really useful in judging an employee's true understanding of how the product works. It really wasn't an educational tool at all. I mean, you can memorize a few questions and answers for these tests we were giving, but it never made an employee an expert on a product where they could talk about the benefits to a member and get the member to buy into that technology.
Yeah, so it's one thing to have that basic foundational knowledge, but it's another thing to become consultative or an ambassador of something and really be able to level up in terms of how you're helping your members or your customers.
Exactly, right? We needed a true knowledge check. We needed to be able to say, a new employee, you've been here for 90 days. Or for a merged credit union, you've been part of our organization for 90 days. You've gone through the Lemonade courses. Let's review your scores and see what you've learned and where you're struggling. Before Lemonade, we didn't really have anything to use as a true reference of learning, and it was an obvious problem.
All right, Matt. So let's take a look at the results. Can you tell us first how Lemonade has been working for you?
Yeah, it's going really well. The number of trainings we've built in there is huge, like I said. And it kind of goes without saying that the employees seeing the biggest impact are new employees or those who are recently merged in. The results are also very easy to track within Lemonade. I can easily and quickly prove that people are retaining the information to a higher degree based on the scores and results within the program.
And so it sounds like you're really finding that the game based piece is impacting retention of knowledge. And what do you think is driving that?
I think that people at our core, we want to be competitive with ourselves or with each other. We want to get better, right? That's why New Year's resolutions are a thing, because we all have something we want to do better in our lives. And I think that when you take something that is typically mundane, like training in the workplace, and you make it fun with visible and attainable results, you drive that competition. It causes people to come back. Maybe they've taken the training 2 times, maybe they know the information, but they want a high score, so they take it a third time. So all we're doing is getting the employee to revisit the same information over and over, which drives retention. That's when it goes from I know where to find the answer to I know the answer. That gives the frontline staff the confidence to better support the members and really elevate that member experience.
Can you tell us a little bit about how it's been received by your team?
That's been received very well. People like it. In fact, some people liked it a bit too much. So we had to start putting some limits on it because they were spending all their time on Lemonade, which is probably a good problem to have, but it just shows that it's a great learning tool. You should hear the new employees we have talk about how this is the most fun they've ever had learning a new role in a new organization.
You mentioned that out of the 3 mergers, you did not have LemonadeLXP for the first, and it was rough. Tell me what it's been like now, the difference of having Lemonade for the next 2 events.
Yeah, it was night and day. So the first merger was really rough. If you ask those employees what the worst part of the merger was, they're going to say they felt like they weren't trained, but it wasn't from lack of effort, right? It was just the method we were approaching them with, and it wasn't the right way to do it. So we really took that feedback to heart with the second merger we did. We said, hey, we've got to do a lot better on this training. When you have a product like Lemonade, we could build out the trainings we needed. I mean, we literally built tutorials on how to use our core operating system, where to click. All this stuff is built within Lemonade, so they can go through a training and see the actual screens they're going to see doing their day-to-day jobs. They can literally see where they would click and have an explanation of what the buttons mean. And probably most importantly is that it's consistent. You're not dependent upon me to present the exact same information to all 12 people from a merged credit union because I'm for sure going to mess it up. So absolutely night and day difference between the first and second merger. By number 3, we're getting pretty good. When we rolled out Lemonade, it was right around the time we're also rolling out a new account opening system. So I built out a demo in Lemonade for the new account opening. And the branch manager from the first merger, who up to this point had not felt super confident in the training we'd given her and her team, she went through that demo and said, oh, that made it easy to learn. She bought into Lemonade immediately. She had lived through the non-Lemonade training experience and had a very clear-cut example of the power of what Lemonade was bringing to the table. So it became a key tool for us in creating consistency as we were growing as an organization, including mergers with other credit unions. We just kept going back to that question, how do we bring these new individuals up to speed? It's been huge for us in transitioning the merged employees, ensuring that consistent member experience, like I said, every channel, every time. I think mergers are a huge selling point for Lemonade. And honestly, it goes beyond that too. Lemonade has become our go-to place for retail training, whether it's onboarding, new product rollouts, refreshers, disruptive events like mergers, you name it, we're using it. Now we're really trying to expand its use to the other departments to get them in there building content so we can create that consistency just across the whole organization.
You're starting to see an increase in confidence when you see those staff members interact with your members.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's not only an increase in confidence, but it's a decrease in the amount of time it took to get there. There's always going to be some hesitation with a big change like a merger, but now it's a matter of days until they start to feel good with the new process rather than taking weeks or months to get to that level of confidence.
Amazing to hear. Thanks, Matt. So let's take a look at some of the numbers. 92.4 active participation rate in the platform, massive engagement there. 3 branches successfully merged into the WyHy organization. And not only have you onboarded all of those new staff, but you've also increased your baseline knowledge across the retail organization from 60 to 90%, which is absolutely huge when we talk about that confidence necessary to ensure an exceptional member experience. So congratulations on that front. So just before we move on to our Q&A, what does the future hold for you, Matt?
Honestly, just building more. Lemonade really builds on its own success. As staff use it and enjoy it, they want to use more of it. So we just have to make sure that we continue to build more content from every department and keep the staff engaged with it.
All right, so let's see if we have any questions from the audience. So first question's in, and it is, when you first implemented Lemonade, how did you roll it out to staff? Great question.
We made the announcement in an all staff meeting type of event, and then it was just getting people their login credentials. The program is, I'll use the word fun. It's fun enough that once people got in, they naturally started just clicking around, right? It has fun graphics, fun designs, and that competitive nature. They will find their way into a training, and from there they pretty much take off on their own. So while we did have to roll it out, it kind of launched itself.
So we've got another question here, which kind of dovetails off of your last one, which is great. Do you find game-based learning is just for younger staff?
That's that makes sense that that question came in. No, not at all. The only employees that seemed resistant to the product at first were the ones that had been at WyHy for a long time. And it wasn't that they were resistant to the product or the game-based learning. They were resistant to taking additional training, right? You've got these 15-year tenured employees who know everything and they don't need any more training. But even they, once they sort of tried it out, got into the game-based learning part of it.
And when you see, stats like 97% active participation, it just speaks to how engaging it is. We have another client actually who chose to make their training voluntary because they said, if this is as good as it sounds, we're going to remove the mandate and see how this goes. And yeah, it's definitely for a mature audience, a younger audience, any audience. We're seeing great success across the board. All right. So next question, is Lemonade the system that you use for onboarding employees?
So we use Lemonade for all of our onboarding M&A as well. We do still have a separate training platform for all of the, I'll say, kind of boring compliance trainings that are out there. But I believe Christy Lemonade is kind of working through how to get even the compliance stuff built into the system, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have clients that use Lemonade for compliance training successfully, but we don't yet have something that's out of the box per se, where all of the regulatory updates are being made on the back end automatically. But it's definitely on our roadmap and it is a massive priority for us. We're actively partnering with experts in the field to be able to offer compliance training out of the box through LemonadeLXP. And I mean, if we can crack that nut, it'll be amazing because you think about how tedious it can be. And if we can make compliance training engaging and fun, and it can be centralized all in one platform, I think that's just a win-win for everybody involved. So looking forward to more on that. So yes, it's definitely on our product roadmap. So our next question is, has LemonadeLXP helped with employee attrition?
Yes. The only reason I hesitate on that is that when I hear employee attrition, I think of a new employee versus a longer term employee. And most specifically, I'll address the new employee. We have, since we've rolled out Lemonade, we've had zero employee turnover during the first 6 months of employment, which, you always hope you don't have much of that attrition early on in employment anyways. But yeah, with the Lemonade, it really engages those new employees right from the get go. Like I mentioned, we have our new employees say that this is the most fun they've ever had learning a new position. So absolutely, it's helped with attrition.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. We actually have another client, PSCU. Don't know if you've heard of them, probably have, that rolled out Lemonade, and they've seen a 56% decrease in attrition by enabling staff and de-stressing the agent role. So great to hear that you're experiencing the same thing. It's wonderful to hear. So last question, Matt, is your plan to use LemonadeLXP for all training moving forward?
If we can, like I said, I like Lemonade as a platform for all the training. I think that we get better, not I think, right? I've got the data to show we get better results from employees utilizing Lemonade for training than any other platform we have. So absolutely, I want it to be our one-stop shop for anything training and knowledge based.
A massive thank you, Matt, for being here today to share your story with us. I think it will definitely help other financial institutions successfully navigate disruptive events like M&As and beyond.
Yeah, thanks for just giving me a chance to get up here and share the story.